Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Kallas and Marks with your host, Joe Staszak, my esteemed co-hosts, Steve Kallas and Johnny Kallas. It is a special Super Bowl preview podcast here at Kallas Remarks. The Patriots playing in their 12th Super Bowl against Seattle. They're playing in their fourth at Levi Stadium tomorrow, 6:30 kickoff. Well, it's an estimated time, but the Seahawks 4.5 point favorites. Johnny, Steve, how are you, fellas?
Great. I'm looking forward to this one.
I know you are. I always
Same
ask
here.
people who have skin in the game. I guess I won't ask Tom Brady this, but I'll ask you, Johnny. What are the nerves like in the metaphorical locker room for you?
For some reason, I don't know if it's a little bit of age. I don't know if it's a little bit of we've been here before, even though it's been 7 years. But I like being the underdog. It's been a long time since we've been the underdog. And, I honestly, ever since I won in the divisional round, I'm like everything else is icing on the cake. This is a pretty young group. Drake May's obviously only in his second year. The future is bright, but it would be nice, obviously, to win this one.
I always get in discussions about this when I hear, because I have a very good friend who's a real big Patriots fan. He calls this like house money. Like, okay, they were 4-13 2 years in a row. Oh, we're back. The Super Bowl, maybe not expected. I don't believe in house money. Someone was telling me, "Oh, your Hurricanes are, this is a house money bullshit." All right, we have as much to lose as anybody in this game. Because you never know when you're getting back.
That's true.
How does it feel for you to be back in the Super Bowl pretty quickly? I know it's 8 years ago, but it seemed like the rebuild with what happened with Jared Mayo and whatnot. 4-13, 4-13, boom, you're in the Super Bowl.
No, it is incredible, and you're totally right, Joe. I shouldn't be taking anything for granted. I do think that look at Dan Marino, right? Made the Super Bowl in his second year, never got back. So it is incredible. What's really incredible to me is that we're back in the Super Bowl. The Patriots are back in the Super Bowl before Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson get there. I mean, if you're a Bills fan, I tell you, the torture continues. But uh,
Torture.
and it's an incredible, it's a great opportunity. Obviously, the whole national media is picking Seattle, which I love.
I love
Vrabel's going
that
to use
too.
that. Vrabel's going to use that as a chip. I'm sure he's going to show them all the clips, and they're going to finally be playing in some good weather. So maybe May can sling that thing a little bit.
Steve, this is, I wouldn't call this a revenge game, but we talk about all the time, Pete Carroll calling that play. And I saw enough of Marshawn Lynch, this week leading up to it and the Malcolm Butler play. But, it has a little bit of, obviously Seattle wants to get back. And oh, look, they have a chance to maybe avenge that loss. But they are favorites this time. Kind of prohibitive favorites. I know it's only 4.5, but like Johnny said, like the national media all love Seattle. Sam Darnold maybe has become like a media darling, which I never thought possible. And I think the country likes Seattle as well to win this game. With what they've done, they won 9 games in a row. Best defense points per game in the league. They're number one. I know they're going up against the Patriots, who are fourth, so could be a very good, very stingy defensive battle. What do you think about this game?
Well, no turnovers for Sam Darnold in the playoffs, which is to me kind of unusual. But you still have to wonder, will he have that moment? Will he make that mistake? Um, Drake May might do it, but I'm concerned he got sacked 5 times in every playoff game so far. So it's hard to believe that they're going to play a game against Seattle and not have a bunch of sacks, but he's got to not fumble the ball. He's got to not turn it over. But the thing that impresses me the most about Seattle, yes, they're big and strong, but they are so fast all over the place. I'm not sure May's going to be able to get out rushing wise because he's a big part of their rushing game now. But if they play man, there's always room for the quarterback to run if they play man. And will they get there with four? Maybe. I was watching the one with Cosell, and he said when they can blitz, they're very dangerous, but they don't really blitz that much, is my recollection. Whereas I think, thankfully, finally, Johnny can laugh at me. Hallelujah! The Patriots are blitzing like they're the Buccaneers or something. So I think that's a big part of the game. I do want to credit one person in the press. I like Darius Butler. You've probably seen him, Joe, right? On the one hand, he's on the McAfee radios, which I like never watching. He's Joe with the hat on backwards. But when he's doing NFL matchup with Sal Pal and Cosell, he's like a straight arrow. And I will give him this. So I'm watching NFL Live on Friday, and they all picked the Texans to beat the Patriots, all of them. And this time, when they get to the end of the game, the Swagoo guy, the guy from the Cowboys, he's like, well, the Texans, it's a tough game, and the Patriots, they beat them, and I'm picking Seattle. And I'm like, nobody said anything after they all picked the Texans. I hate when that happens. As you know, Joe, or you probably know, they don't pick against the point spread. They give you the Dan
Right.
Orlovsky
That's
guy picks
exactly right.
he picks every game 2017. I'm not interested. I'm not a gambler,
2017.
but I'm not interested. But I was going to say this, but Darius Butler already did, so I give him full credit. He said, I'm picking the Patriots because of their experience. Now, what's their experience? They got a coach who won 3 Super Bowls. So there's
Also
Vrabel.
has, I think, 3 touchdown receptions in Super Bowls. He was the linebacker.
Right. And they also have McDaniels. Now those are things that Seattle can't match. I'm sorry. Now, is that a big deal? I think it is a big deal. Johnny could probably tell when it was, but many years ago they interviewed Belichick and he said one of the big things you got to understand is the Super Bowl is really like 5 quarters because the halftime show is so long, and it's a different deal. So in the fourth quarter of the game, it's a different deal because it feels like you're playing the fifth quarter. And I think that's helped the Patriots, and I think they're going to bang that through. Now, I think what Seattle has took Cup won the MVP with the Rams like 4 years ago, and I think there's one other player who's won a Super Bowl, and good for them. But I don't think they're going to have the whole analysis that these guys, and by these guys I mean the coach and the offensive coordinator, can pull out of their hats. Look, if you're looking at it on paper, I think you pick Seattle. That's why everybody's picking Seattle. I think you're right, Joe. 4.5 points is a lot. It strikes me as a field goal game. But I think obviously a lot is on the shoulder, no pun intended, on Drake May, because he's going to, I think, have to do some running and they can take some shots down the field. Is Seattle good? Yeah. I was talking to Johnny before we went on the air. I think they're going to have a guy on the left side, either a tight end to chip Hooper, Hunter Henry, or a back. I think Stevenson's the better blocker on the blitz, for example, Johnny. So I think from the get-go, they're going to have to try and stop whoever's rushing on Campbell because Campbell, who came back from injury, he just hasn't been real good. And again, he's facing some of the best defensive linemen in the league, and they're all kind of leaning that way now. So we'll have to see what happens. But I certainly think the Patriots are live.
Johnny, let me ask you this because Steve's talking about the quarterback playing Derek May. Sam Darnold, actually, his numbers have gone up in the postseason. Drake May have gone down a little bit.
Yeah.
They've won every game they've played. 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, 72% completion percentage regular season, 55.8 in the playoffs. I know that there was a mess of a blizzard in Denver for the second half, but it wasn't great conditions either against the Texans. So maybe jumping the gun a little bit, but his rating during this year was 113.5, 84 in the postseason. Did his best Steph Curry impression in the Texans game, dribbling the ball over the field. Thank God, C.J. Stroud threw a pick every other play. But they're there. They're in his second year, runner-up, MVP. What are we looking for out of Drake May tomorrow?
I think we're looking for first and foremost take care of the football, which is the one thing he did really well and use his legs against Denver. And I think the reason you see that difference is the two reasons that you mentioned. One is the level of competition just got so much more difficult in the playoffs. They went from having the easiest schedule, one of the easiest schedules in NFL history to playing
second, yeah.
To playing, I think now
really tough schedule with defenses.
So if Drake May wins this, I can't think of a tougher road to travel playing against opponent defenses. And I think one of the reasons it's hard to gauge where this Patriot team is at is Drake May has not looked good against three really good defenses, Chargers, Texans, Broncos, in inclement weather. He's playing a fourth really great defense, but it's going to be in much better conditions. And the Patriots defense has looked great, but against three very suspect offenses. Justin Herbert with no offensive line, CJ Stroud throwing the ball at will to the other team, and a backup quarterback in a blizzard. So it's a little bit difficult to gauge what this Patriots team is. But if you're Drake May, I think you have to do what you did last week, which is a combination of take care of the football, number one. I know he's taken a lot of sacks, but I'd rather see sacks than, well, losing the football or throwing the football away, and then using your legs when necessary. Now, the one thing we saw against the Rams that the Seahawks defense allows, they can sometimes allow some big plays now, and Drake May can hit some big plays. We saw that in the Houston game. So I look for them to take advantage of some shots downfield when they get them. And the other thing this Seahawks defense struggles with is against tight ends. Steve talked about rightfully so, you need to chip and help Will Campbell. That's absolutely right. But during the regular season, the Seahawks defense gave up around 6 receptions for about 67 yards to tight ends. So I look for a big game for either Hunter Henry and or Austin Hooper. Hooper hasn't gotten much love of late. He's a good receiving tight end, man. He's a veteran. I think he was with the Falcons in that 28-3 game as a young tight end. I think he caught a touchdown if I remember. I look for Austin Hooper maybe to have a sneaky good game for the Patriots to win this one.
Steve, I know folks are kind of so stupid comparing anybody to Tom Brady, but all right, Drake May, his second year, Brady won a Super Bowl in his second year, first year as a starting quarterback in the postseason. He didn't light anything up. He threw one touchdown pass in the playoffs that year, and it was in the Super Bowl. But he did enough to win the games. Drew Bledsoe spelled him in the Pittsburgh game and threw a touchdown pass to was it David Patton, Johnny?
Yep.
David Patton. It was a huge play. But he played well enough to win, protected the football pretty well. The Drake May story. Are we looking for a heroic performance tomorrow, or like Johnny said, play safe, protect the football, which is first and foremost of utmost importance in a game like this, and let your defense do the rest?
Well, I think he can sling it. I think, and I defer to Johnny, but I think he's as a second-year quarterback from a talent level. I think he's probably better than Tom Brady was in his second year. And I think I think that I mean, look, the guy lost the MVP. It looks like by one first place vote. And if he won it, I think that you could make a real good argument for him. And maybe it was a lifetime achievement award for somebody else. I'm not knocking Stafford at all, but I think they expect him to do more than maybe they expected Brady to do. And I think he's, again, talent-wise at this point, and don't forget the legs. Everybody, I agree, Brady, greatest football player ever, couldn't run from here to there. And so I think that's a big advantage if we're just looking at the talent. But, Brady's probably the most mentally tough quarterback arguably ever because of the situations he was in. And never forget John Madden saying, oh, they got the rookie quarterback. They're going to take a knee and wait for overtime. And then, of course, he drove him down the field to get that field goal to win a Super Bowl. And so I expect a lot from Drake May. I think Johnny's right. Obviously, he has to be safe with the ball, et cetera. But I think they're going to take their shots downfield.
Yeah.
And I think if they don't, they're going to have trouble winning. But I also agree that the tight ends play a big factor, both neutralizing or helping to protect, I'll say, the left side, because they have two rookies starting, right, Johnny? The left side of the offensive line, you're going to need a Stevenson type guy over there or a tight end type guy over there. And again, as Johnny pointed out, the tight ends can do some good against Seattle, and there's not a whole lot that can do some good against Seattle. I did see some stuff that they put on NFL matchup that, the Patriots might be able to run up the middle. Which would be fantastic, of course. And both sides are going to have to try and run the ball early, I would think. It's going to be interesting to me even who gets the ball first. If you saw those numbers, I think Seattle's like plus 79 in the first quarter or something, and the Patriots are third, but they're like plus 45 in the first quarter. Does that really, really matter? Well, we'll see who scores first and how much scoring there is in the first quarter. I think this has a chance to be a low-scoring game. I think the Patriots' defense is better than what people think. In fact, I was surprised. Mina Kimes, who we love, she was talking about how Gonzalez, who was it who ran by him for that 54-yard pass in Denver? Was that Shaheed or I don't remember who got that ball? Huh?
I mean, Shahid's on Seattle, but not Shahid, I don't think.
No, but it was another speedster.
Yeah.
And so she thinks that Shahid could run right by Gonzalez and pointed to that play, but I'm like, no. And thankfully they don't usually, I don't want to say criticize each other, correct each other, but Dan Orlovsky said, yeah, it looks like when you see the play, Johnny, at the time he's looking back, where's my safety help? And so Dan Orlovsky saw that. I'm surprised Mina Kimes didn't, but whatever. All those guys were leaning Seattle the whole time, the whole time, the whole time. They all picked Seattle. I think Laura Rutledge picked the Patriots, but I know they have a thing about everybody picking the same game, but they all picked the Texans. And so I think it was a little unfair. I thought one of these people would come up. I'm not knocking Laura Rutledge, but obviously, the two NFL players and Mina Kimes, who knows a lot. Plus, she's from Seattle. I think she roots for Seattle. I'm not saying that's why she picked them, but I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in this game that's maybe second level. That's the way I would say it. Will Hooper have a good game? We even Hunter Henry, who sometimes he has a real good game and sometimes he's a blocker. Um, but I certainly it might be a pick at the end with my heart and not my head. But we'll talk about that at the very end.
Johnny, Sam Darnold, again, most of the storylines are kind of about him because of how his career started with the Jets. His first NFL pass, he threw it across the field. It got picked off by Detroit, ran it back. Jets did win that game, by the way, but he's had a rough time, seeing ghosts. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Can we stop talking about that comment he made? But he hasn't thrown a pick in the postseason. And I thought that the coaching staff did a nice job keeping him out of trouble against the 49ers in the two games he played against them, but had to kind of let it fly against the Rams, and he did a great job. I thought it was his best game I've ever seen him play. 3 touchdowns, almost 400 yards passing. I don't really care about guys' legacies. You're going to win the game or not. Now, if he doesn't win the game, but comports himself pretty well, plays decent, they lose a tight game. What is it? How is his legacy after this game? I always think you have to finish and you have to win. It's certainly not going to be where it was with the Jets. I think he's gained respect.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of like Danielson, who Mr. Miyagi said you don't even have to fight Johnny in the final. You've gained respect. Has he gained the respect yet, or does he have to beat Johnny in the final here?
No, yeah. And before I get to the door, I just want to make a quick point. I hope it didn't come across that I think May can play like he did in Denver, passing wise, and they'll win this game. I just think the foundation is take care of the football, use your legs when you can. And then, like in Houston, they hit some deep balls, which I think you can against this Seattle defense. Might not be the most efficient game, but being able to hit those deep balls in select spots, I think is the way. Sam Darnold, I don't think this is to me a legacy game. I think of how different Darnold is from last year to this year. Well, I shouldn't say it's not a legacy game because if he wins the Super Bowl, he'll sort of be immortalized in that way. But what I'm trying to say is Darnold last year, after going 14-3, but having two brutal back-to-back losses in, playoff level like environments, ended up being cut. There's no chance that Sam Darnold's getting cut this year. He's clearly the quarterback for the future for the Seattle Seahawks. And I think his performance in the championship game against the Rams, a team that he had really struggled against, really solidified him as, overcoming those arguments that I'll be honest, a lot of people were making that can he win the big one? Can he win the big one? He won a big one. We'll see if he can win the big one. And I think the key for New England, I think there's two big differences. One, obviously, New England has to get a lot of pressure. And I think the key in this game is Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, can you generate interior pressure? I completely agree with Steve. You need to bring blitzes, but I don't think you can blitz 75% of the time. You're going to have to get pressure at times with 4. Can you generate, especially interior pressure? Darnold does not move around that well, and we know he can and has this year turned the ball over when facing, some heat, right? It's the kryptonite of any good quarterback, great quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback, greatest quarterback of all time. Pressure with 4. I think the Patriots could be able to do that. The other big difference with the Rams, Patriots have secondary guys who can really cover now. Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, Marcus Jones, these are guys who can play man to man. They're really good in the secondary. I agree with Steve's analysis. I don't think Gonzalez got burned. I think there was miscommunication between him and the safety. I forget if it was Hawkins or Woodson, but the Patriots can cover. So, I expect them and I hope them as a Patriots fan to do everything they can to take JSN out of the game. They do have some other players, especially Cooper Kupp, who's a veteran who's been here before and didn't have a lot of, gaudy statistics, but can come up big. But I'd love to take something out of Belichick's playbook, have anybody but JSN beat you, get a little bit of interior pressure, get an early turnover, get into his head a little bit. He's not on the road, but he's not at home. He's not in Seattle. And I think the Patriots have a chance to make this a low-scoring football game.
And I will say this, if I could, Joe,
Yeah.
and Jigba, who's the offensive player of the year, right? He was named offensive
Yeah.
player of the year. And
Deservedly so.
yeah, and I think I don't know if Dan Orlovsky said that right after the whole thing with Gonzalez and could he get outrun by people, but I think it could be the kind of thing, because I think he was talking about Revis, Johnny, where in the old days, didn't Belichick, he didn't put his top corner necessarily on the top receiver. What he did was he put his top corner on the second receiver and double teamed with good guys.
Carlton Davis.
Yeah, so they might do that, and I think that could make things a little more difficult for Njigba, who's great. But again, when you really put two guys on a guy, and that means they'll be playing man, of course. But I think that's a possible way to go. And I think that's probably a good idea because Gonzalez can cover pretty much anybody, I would think. And he's become an all-pro to me. And
Yeah.
I've heard for a while, but I think they might do that. Again, I really didn't hear much talk about that, but that used to be a Belichick staple, I think. He certainly did it with Revis and did it other times.
Absolutely. And I don't know if Carlton Davis is quick enough. I don't know if you even put smaller Marcus Jones with some help on him, who's a lot faster than, yeah, that'll be fascinating to see. You're absolutely right, Steve. And then you have Gonzalez shut out Cooper Kupp or somebody else.
How much does okay? Let's say you double JSN, and I don't know why you wouldn't. He was open, wide open on that touchdown. I think at the end of the half last week, like, guys, what are you doing? I mean, I know it's the Rams. They struggled defensively a little bit with small cornerbacks and all the yards and touchdowns they gave up, but. I would think he's one of those guys you have to know where he is at all times. You know, Brady used to wear a thing when they play the Ravens, number 20, know where Ed Reed is at all time, and don't forget that. Um, is Cooper Kupp enough if you left him single coverage enough to do some damage against the New England secondary?
I think it depends who's covering him. I mean, I think Christian Gonzalez, I'm not saying Cooper Kupp even against Gonzalez. I'm sure you can make a couple key third down conversions, but I think he'd have a hard time going one-on-one against Christian Gonzalez at this stage of Kupp's career. I don't want to say, I know, I think Gonzalez is an all-pro level cornerback. I'm not saying he's Darrelle Revis at the top of his game, but he's one of the five best cornerbacks in football. And I think Cooper Kupp would have a difficult time, even one-on-one against Gonzalez. Maybe I'm sure he'll get his a little bit, but making any sort of big-time contributions.
Um, Steve, it's not the Patriots of old when they had, Aaron Hernandez when he was, playing with Gronk, and even when he wasn't, Gronk was the deadliest weapon that Brady had in his arsenal. And it's not going to be a lot of, Hunter Henry, and then and then the other guy for Seattle is not a lot of big name tight ends here, but so can we? Because sometimes you don't expect that to happen, and then you see like a tight end who's an average to above average tight end have a big game because they decided to throw to him, and the defense kind of left him alone. Any chance that happens here tomorrow?
I think there is a chance because I'll just give you one stat I saw on the ESPN. The Patriots 11.4 yards per reception between the numbers, fifth in the NFL. That generally means tight ends, correct, Johnny? Generally speaking. I guess it could also be like a slot receiver, maybe, but these up the seams, Hunter Henry's been doing that for years. He's real good at it. Again, Hooper is, I think, as Johnny said, a better receiver than people think. And both of them are pretty good blockers. And again, I think they're going to be used to chip. And I think you got to do it early because I think when they did it against Denver, Johnny, or maybe even before that, I think guys were getting off the edge pretty quickly early in the game. And these guys are real good. So you're going to have to try and fight that, I think, early. And even the tight end can do that chip and then go up the middle, 6, 8, 10 yards. If you catch the ball, it's harder to tackle him than a running back, although Stevenson's a hard guy to tackle. I think that's going to be a big part of the game because if there is one Seattle weakness that people are pointing out, it's how maybe a tight end can have a good game. And I think the Patriots have two that can do it, but I think one of them should be blocking a lot of the time.
You could even have a Matt Collins chip at times, especially in the run. I mean, Matt Collins is as good of a blocking receiver, and he's a big physical presence. I mean, he looks almost like a tight end out there, and he was the receiver who had the most production in a day they didn't have any production 2 weeks ago, his first game back. And, the Patriots, Diggs is their number one, but they got a lot of guys, man. They can spread that around. They have a lot of like above average to good players. I'd put Matt Collins in that category that, they can exploit. They're not reliant on one guy, that's for sure.
Former Eagles fourth round pick, wasn't good enough to play here. I love the fact he doesn't wear shoes and he wears like crazy mask to the game. He's out there. I like that. Played for Buffalo, and now yes, he's going to be starting in the Super Bowl. Now, no, not every year, but there are some years where a guy comes out of nowhere, didn't expect, maybe never even heard of him. I always go back to Timmy Smith in the late '80s. Johnny might have been a little before your time. Played for the Redskins. Denver had a 10-point lead, and I think Doug Williams threw 5 touchdown passes in the second quarter, and they led 35-10. But Timmy Smith had 202 yards, Super Bowl MVP. Can we see someone like that, Steve? Maybe a dark horse come up big and guy that you didn't really expect, maybe because people left him alone, or he just, for whatever reason, decided to dial it in and have a game like that tomorrow.
I think the tight ends are the key to the game for the and I certainly want Drake May to take a Booty we haven't even mentioned, so he can make some incredible catches one on one. But I think at least what I can see of the, watching Seattle 7 or 8 times this year, I think there is a bit of a weakness up the middle. Not that their safeties aren't good, they are. But I think you got a guy like Hunter Henry, a very experienced guy who's been around a long time, who's a really good tight end, hard to bring down if he gets it moving. So I think it could be one of those tight ends if you're looking for a sleeper. I think Diggs is almost now the heart and soul of that team. If you see him before the game and after the game, the stuff he's doing, but don't forget, he's still a real good receiver.
Real good receiver.
You hope maybe you can get him on a slant, and maybe he he can do more damage than catching, a 6 or 8 yard pass, because I think he still has the ability. Now they were showing his stats; they aren't that good, but I think Diggs is so much more than just the wide receiver option, and I think he can do a lot more on and off the field because I think these guys look up to him. He's been around a long time, and he's really. I don't know who the comeback player of the year was. It probably wasn't him, but I think he's really come back to be a really good NFL receiver, and that's what you need. And he's got hands of gold. If you saw that catch he made 2 weeks ago, I mean, I don't even know how you could catch that ball. So I would look for either a tight end or maybe even Diggs, who I think people would be surprised if he had a real good game, Joe.
Johnny, Seattle has won one Super Bowl. They've lost two, playing in their fourth. We know the Malcolm Butler loss, but they lost to the Steelers in 2006. What I remember about that game is I thought the refs were horrible, and I usually think that anyway. But Jeremy Stevens, one of their top name tight ends, he didn't see a ball that he didn't like to drop in that game. I mean, he just seemed like nerves got to him. And he dropped a lot of passes, and Seattle probably deserved a better fate, but lost to the Steelers in that game. Are you concerned about any of your guys maybe having one of those games where the moment's a little big for them?
I don't think so. Look, the Super Bowl is a different animal. It's obviously all the lights
Can
are
I
on.
ask you why it's a different? I mean, I get it in theory, but it's the championship game 2 weeks ago. That's pretty big. I mean, and the whole world's watching, and I know now it's the last game. It's a title game, and the Super Bowl is a ridiculous animal. It's like a holiday here in the United States. 192 countries watch it. 120 million people. It's pretty cool. But the nerves really get cranked up a little bit more for this one.
I think, it's a spectacle, right? I mean, you're going out there a week early, you're going through all the media, you're doing the team photos, then it's a much more corporate event, obviously, than the championship games. And Steve's point, the game is different because you have the 30 plus minute halftime up from, 13 or 14 minutes. It does effectively feel like a 5 quarter game. But no, I think, look, New England doesn't have a lot of players who have played in Super Bowls, though I think Austin Hooper did play in one. But they have a lot of guys who have played in big championship games like Stephon Diggs and others. And I think they'll be ready to play. I don't expect the nerves to get to a Drake May. He's pretty cool, calm, and collected. And, if they get to him a little bit, I expect him to be able to use his legs. That's his advantage. If he's not throwing the ball great, he can do something with his legs, whereas Sam Darnold cannot. And I expect that to be a big difference.
And Joe,
Steve,
if I could
yeah,
say, I heard Herm Edwards this morning on ESPN, and they asked him because he played. I think he only played in one Super Bowl, but
played
he
one
played.
Super Bowl in '81.
He played in the Super Bowl, and they asked him, so what's it like? What's the big deal? You're playing in the Super Bowl, and he says the big deal is when you run out into the field and you're playing in the Super Bowl, you can't even feel your legs.
Yeah,
So
you
I guess
know,
that's probably the best way. But I think there's different levels. Obviously, there's the regular season to the playoffs. Everybody says it's a different game, whatever. And then within the playoffs, I think it's different if you get to a conference championship game. That's bigger than playing the first round of the playoffs. And if you get to the Super Bowl, if you can't feel your feet, hopefully you get it back quickly. And obviously, is being a little facetious, but you can understand them. They know everything you just said. They know tens of millions of people are gonna. I don't think they really care about the betting, but like $1 gazillion will be bet on the game, and how long is the national anthem or whatever stupid things you can bet. I mean, it just strikes me as absurd.
and
Strikes
you
me
could
as
rig those. You could rig those because you have someone just stretch out the last verse. I think
maybe
that's a
we'll have
little.
that. Maybe there'll have to be an investigation. Who knows? But I think it is a different animal, and it's the biggest animal of all.
The night before the Eagles played Arizona, the year Kurt Warner took the Cardinals to the Super Bowl and they lost to the Steelers. Troy Aikman was doing the game the next day, and we had a chance to talk to him. And I pulled him aside afterwards, after we did the real stuff. I said, "All right, tell me what it's like in the Super Bowl. You played in three." He goes, "I couldn't breathe." And this is Troy Aikman. I mean, Hall of Famer. It was great and all this. He goes, "I couldn't breathe." He said, "Emmett was the same thing. We were hyperventilating in the in the huddle." He goes, "We got the install. I got the install from Jimmy. This was against in Buffalo in Pasadena." He goes, "I got it on Thursday, so I had 3 or 4 days to think about the very first pass, which was 18-yard into Michael Irvin. I just ruminated about that for 3 or 4 days, and I've thrown a million of them, and he completed it, and they ended up scoring on the drive. But he said it took half the quarter to settle down." And I thought that was interesting because no one talks about other games like that. It's the Super Bowl, and Johnny, you're right. It's a spectacle, and it just adds a level of angst, which I always like to see who deals with it a little better. Now let me talk about the special teams. I mean, Johnny, your team has won the first 3 Super Bowls. You won. Adam Vinatieri,
Hall of
won two
Famer.
of them really, and then the other one was a
Hall,
win. What's
Hall of
that?
Fame Adam Vinatieri. That's
Hall
right.
of Famer Adam
Hall of
Vinatieri.
Famer Adam Vinatieri. Kicked one late against Carolina, but kicked one with the last play of the game against the Rams. Also won by three against the first 3 Super Bowls, won by 3 points. And I know a lot of times it comes down to the kicker. You have Andrew Borgalis on one side, and he played for me in college, and he always makes me nervous. And then you have Jason Myers for Seattle. Who we liking, Steve, in this matchup of kickers, or you think both of them will be okay? Because I've seen Andrew Borgalis in non-pressure situations, shank 30-yarders or push, a 42-yarder. He makes me He'd make me nervous if I was a Patriot fan.
I give Jason Meyer a slight edge on kickers, but on special teams overall, I give the Patriots an edge because they got a great, Marcus Jones he could break one at any time. And I think the big picture on special teams, I'm going to give to the Patriots. But I think, well, look, Patriots guy has made all he's had to, he's done everything asked of him. But I think there's if I had to pick one position where it could be a problem in terms of nerves, is if you bring a kicker in a big spot late in the game. You almost hope they have, I don't know, 1 or 2 extra points, or maybe a makeable field goal early, be like scoring a layup or hitting, a 10 or 12 footer, and then you're shooting threes at the end. So maybe that gives you a little courage, or you can calm yourself down and make an easy kick. Of course, if you miss it, if you miss an easy one, that could be a disaster late in the game.
Johnny, the edge in coaching, forget about straight up. This is the Super Bowl, and Mike Vrabel has a lot of experience, along with Josh McDaniel, tons of experience. In terms of the message, it's one thing, and I'm curious to know what you think the message is going to be from Vrabel to his team, and How about just being in the game and that kind of in-game experience, dealing with that pressure before winning Super Bowls? How much of an advantage does that give the Patriots?
Yeah, I think it gives them. I mean, Steve alluded to this point earlier. I do think it gives them a big advantage. I mean, Mike Vrabel played in three Super Bowls, first time as a coach, but obviously played. And I think, as importantly, McDaniels coached in. And he was on all six of the victorious
Mm.
Patriots coaching staff and was the play caller for the last three. So, I mean, McDaniels has a ton of experience calling these big games and in games in which they performed really well and they needed to perform really well to be competitive, a la against, Seattle, Atlanta, Philly the second time. And then games where they just had to manage it and break one out, like against the Rams the last time the Patriots have been in the Super Bowl. So I think McDaniels will do a really good job managing the game, knowing what needs to be done, knowing what kind of game it is. I think the message from Vrabel, I mean, they've had the slogan, we all we got, we all we need. The whole world's sort of against us. Everyone's picking against us. So I think he's going to use that as sort of material. And Mike Vrabel's a player's coach. I'm sure he'll do a good job of it. I'm confident also in Vrabel. I was really impressed with how he managed the sort of Denver game where it became clear that Denver just could not score the ball, where they're effectively having Drake May, their borderline MVP quarterback, throw the ball away on third down to be
Throw
able
that
to
ball
punt.
out of the bounds, yeah.
I mean, so, I don't expect we won't have those conditions tomorrow, but I think Vrabel, that was really impressive, just the level of sense he had for that game. I thought that was as good of a coaching job he's done all year. Now, look, Mike McDonald, man, I have to say, in the biggest play of the game, he ended up dropping nine guys and completely confused the MVP, the most experienced outside of Aaron Rodgers quarterback in football, the best quarterback in football, Matt Stafford. So Mike McDonald can call a defensive game now, and I'm not going to take that away from him. I think if you're looking for an edge in the Super Bowl in terms of experience, it's obviously on the Patriots sideline.
Well, guys, here we are. It's time for picks, the pick segment. I think I hit on 94% of my games this year. Okay, no, I didn't. In fact, I've been terrible in the playoffs. Uh, I'll let Steve. Why don't you go first? I think I was 1-1 last week. Doesn't matter. I was terrible in the playoffs, but your pick. Here we go.
I'll go first. It's look, I think on paper you do pick the Seahawks and they say you have a 60% chance to win. But I saw some of that with the Texans. And I think the Patriots have kind of been underrated. Again, they played an easy schedule, but now they've come against some very tough defenses. You almost can't count the Denver game because Denver obviously has a real good defense, but the weather became
A
unmanageable.
mess.
And oh, by the way, Johnny, when you're talking about how what McDaniels did and what Vrabel did, don't forget when the snow started, second half or into the second half, the Patriots ran the ball 8 times in a row. So they can adapt to stuff like that. Obviously, that's not going to be an issue tomorrow. Um, and this is more heart than head. Don't know if my son wasn't a diehard all these years, and I was at that Atlanta 28-3 Super Bowl. But I think they have enough to win the game. And I think, as Johnny was just talking, I think between Vrabel and McDaniels, that's not really something you can quantify, except to know these guys have been there and done that. You have to convey it to your players, of course. But I always go back to what Belichick said about that being essentially a five-quarter game. Is that something that Seattle picks up on and talks about, or are you told to pace yourself early, or total rest at halftime, or maybe not total rest because it's so long you don't want to lose the whatever it is you have going if you have anything going. And it also gives them even more time to make changes. The Patriots have always been a real good halftime team to make some changes, going back to six Super Bowls, but now with this team as well, I think. So I certainly take the points, 4.5. I think that's a lot. And I'm surprised if people are really, I haven't looked at FanDuel or anything, but if people are really laying it in on Seattle, I think taking the 4.5 is a lot. And I do think that the Patriots will win the game outright.
Johnny.
Yeah, I think You know, 2 weeks ago, I was feeling, even as a Patriots fan, a little bit iffy about this one. But as time's worn on, I'm feeling more and more confident. I don't have a rational reason for that, but I'm feeling more confident about the Patriots' chances. Teddy Bruschi famously said the most difficult game to win in the NFL is a road championship game. And I know it was against a backup quarterback. I know the conditions were terrible, but I think the Patriots built a lot of mental toughness going into Denver. Altitude, bad weather, coming out with a victory, taking care of the football. And I think that mental toughness is going to translate to the Super Bowl. I think they're going to be able to get pressure on Darnold early, maybe force him into an early turnover that could, mess with him a little bit. I expect this to be a little bit more of a low-scoring game. I know the conditions will be better for throwing the ball, especially for the Patriots than they have been. But I think these two defenses for real. Give me New England 20, Seattle 17, Super Bowl 36 all over again.
Love it, my man.
No, if we had to pick, I was going to pick the same score if we had to pick them. I didn't know we did, but I'll stick with that as well.
All right. So what is it? 20-16, you said?
20 to 17. 20. Hey, your kicker's gonna kick the game deciding. I won't say game winning, but the game deciding field.
Andrew Borgalis, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Well, I'm not as analytical. I look where the country's going with Seattle, and it was almost a foregone conclusion. And I know a lot of it's recency bias. They look good against the Rams, put up a lot of points, look slick, buttoned up. Whereas it was hard to tell in the I mean, it wasn't New England's fault that it was a blizzard, so they didn't use all their assets or play like they can. They had to really kind of dumb down the game, muddy the game. I think people were kind of thinking that, but their defense has been great. They've been one of the best teams all year. I don't care about their 32nd ranked schedule. And there's the Sam Darnold factor. Now, he's played great. I don't expect him really to play poorly, but who knows? I mean, there was always that, the interceptions. 30 interceptions this year. He threw 14. I think Geno Smith threw 17. He was number one. No interceptions in the postseason, and I think his quarterback rating is 113. It's been ridiculous. But I'm going with the Patriots. I'm going outright, too. Forget about the points. I think they win the game outright. And it's going to be interesting. Any last... And I'll go. I'll say 19-14. Any I don't know. Any weirdness? Any trick plays? I watched the Philly special last night, and Nick Foles said he got kind of the idea when the Patriots kind of tried something with Tom Brady and Danny Amendola a little before that. And I always maintain that, most of these guys were high school quarterbacks anyway, but Julian Edelman was a quarterback at Kent State, but I think he was hurt. So Amendola threw the pass. It was catchable.
Edelman was out for the year that year.
Yeah, he was out for the year, but he was a quarterback. Amendola threw the ball a little high, but, and Brady will tell you, he probably should have caught that ball. But and then that kind of put the idea in Nick Foles' head, and they used it. Iconic play, obviously. You see any of those? Anything like that? I mean, Ben Johnson's not coaching, and neither is Doug Peterson. Nick Foles actually made the call on that play. Any thoughts on a trick play?
McDaniels has used, I think, one of their biggest passing plays. Wasn't it on a flea flicker to Matt Collins against Denver? They've done a little bit of that. I don't expect a trick play to necessarily win the game. But look, you have two great offensive play calls, not just Josh McDaniels, Clint Kubiak, who's probably going to be the next head coach of the good luck of the Las Vegas Raiders. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw something, especially if the offenses are having a hard time moving the ball, which I think they will.
I think so as well. Well, I'm looking forward to it, fellas. Great stuff all year. Of course, we'll be back on Monday with a Super Bowl recap. Super Bowl 60, Levi Stadium tomorrow at 6:30, 4.5-point line. I think the over-under is 45.5. Seattle, 6 of the last 8 games have held their opponents under 16 points. So it's leaning towards an under, but you never know. Super Bowls, all bets are off. But good stuff. You can follow Steve's stuff daily on his Facebook forum page. Speaking of sports with Steve Kallas. You can follow this podcast on YouTube and all the audio outlets. And again, we'll be back Monday to recap Super Bowl 60 from Levi Stadium, Seattle, and New England. Good luck, fellas. Johnny, good luck. I know you got some skin in the game, so I always live vicariously through my people who have. 2 of the last 3 years, my squad was in it, so I don't have the angst like I used to, but I miss that. People are like, oh, I'm so nervous, suck. It doesn't suck. Guess what? When that's gone for 20 years and your team sucks, you'll be wanting those butterflies back. So I'm envious, Johnny. Good luck to you, my friend, and we'll catch you guys after the weekend.
Thanks, fellas.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it, folks, and we'll catch you soon.